In John 18, verse 38, Pontius Pilate asks a very good question. The Bible reports Pilate is asking Jesus, "What is truth?" I find that question so interesting because in our society today, truth is seen as something subjective. Whoever can shout the loudest and the longest can claim the truth for their own. You would think that everyone would desire the truth, but my life experience has taught me that people are too willing to embrace a lie as the truth if that lie will make them happier. Or they are willing to ignore the truth if that makes them more comfortable. Let me give you an example. Someone once asked me if I'd ever seen the movie The Passion of the Christ. I responded that I hadn't because I was afraid to watch it. It seemed too emotional for me, too intense. I told my friend I didn't want to spend 2 hours watching someone be tortured. His response to me was, "He lived it. All you have to do is watch it." His comment has stayed with me, perhaps because it is true. The truth about Christ's death is intense, and it is emotional, and it is almost impossible to feel fully qualified to speak about the crucifixion of Christ. The pain, the torment is truly unimaginable. Perhaps the best way is to stick to the facts, the plain truth. Here are some indisputable truths about Christ's crucifixion. A trusted friend betrayed him. His face was beaten with clenched fists and slapped with open palms. His scalp was penetrated with long thorns beaten into his skin by cane poles. His beard was plucked from his face. The spit of angry men drenched his face. His back was ripped to shreds by a cat-of-nine-tails whip made of leather strips onto which were sewn bits of rock and bone and metal. He had to bear the weight of a heavy timber beam. His hands and feet were nailed to the cross. His body twisted in spasms as he was suspended on the cross, the weight of his body tearing the wounds on his hands and feet, the muscles of his chest and abdomen slowly giving way, causing him to suffocate. He was mocked while he hung on the cross. He was on the cross for approximately 7 hours. Our sins were placed upon him. His side was pierced with a spear. His heart erupted, and then men threw dice for his clothes. All of this from the very men he was dying to save. And also suffering with him was his mother, Mary. John 18:25 tells us she was near the cross with her sister Mary and Mary Magdalene. As his mother, do you not suppose she felt every nail and every lash of the whip? Do you not think that even as he was on the cross, she would have traded places with him as any mother who loves their child would? And others were suffering also. Can you imagine the guilt Simon Peter must have felt when he realized he had indeed denied Jesus 3 times? And the guilt of Judas, so overwhelming that Matthew tells us he hanged himself in shame. The truth can be hard. It can hurt. But the truth of Christ's death must be told so that we may understand the enormity of his sacrifice. To paraphrase my friend, if he can live it, we can hear it. So is that it? Is that the final truth? Is the entire truth the story of a man dying unjustly on a cross? Or is there more that is true? We must realize the entire truth of the crucifixion of Jesus, because even in the midst of his sorrow and pain, there is hope. Even in his torment, Jesus holds out the offer of salvation. Luke tells us Christ says, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." And Luke says that Christ tells the criminal who recognized his innocence, "Truly I say to you today that you will be with me in paradise." The crucifixion is Christ at his most human and his most divine. His suffering plumbs the depths of what a human can suffer, and he suffers one of the most painful ways ever devised to die. And yet this is also Jesus at his most radiant and transcendent. He is about to conquer death so that we all may live. You see, when Pontius Pilate asked his question, "What is truth?" Jesus had already told him, "For this reason I was born, for this reason I have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." And those of us here today, we know the truth that Pilate didn't. We know that Jesus was indeed a king mightier than any before or since. We know that when Pilate asked his question, he was looking the answer straight in the face. In John 14:6, Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Jesus is the truth, the entire truth, and the unalterable truth. In John 11:25, Jesus says, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies." What more truth do we need? Who can come between us and the truth? No one and nothing, not even death. So tonight, as we leave our church, our sanctuary, let us carry the truth in our hearts. It is a hard truth and a cruel one, but it also carries a seed of hope, a seed that will come to flower on Sunday morning.
Crucified my Lord. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when the stone was rolled away? Were you there when the stone was rolled away? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble.